welcome to another video. So in this video we're going to be painting up this Stormvermin for my Age of Sigmar Skaven army, and if you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so. It really helps me out a lot. So yeah, we're going to be going for a bit of a box art look at this. We're going to be going for the classic red Stormvermin because that's the best way to do it, I think. So we're going to be starting off with base coating all of the armor panels using Mephiston red. This taking about 2 or 3 layers, quite thin, a little bit of water in there just to thin it down a little bit. And you just want to go around and get all of the armor plates red so you get a nice opaque finish. Like I said, 2 or 3 layers is what I used. I really do like the red. This is the way I do my red in all of my army. So even if you've seen some of the pictures of the rat ogres that have been on Instagram and TikTok, this is how I've done the red on there as well. And so there you see, we're just getting around, make sure it's all nice and done. Like I said, a good couple of layers to do. And if you have a problem, just check out the box for the box art just to see where these armor panels are, and that'll give you a good guide on where you need to do them. Alright, so next we're going to be base coating all of the cloth, all of the undergarments, and we're going to be using Karnak stone for this. Now this colour, obviously going over a black undercoat, does take a while, so I did use about 4 very thin layers. Using a hairdryer to dry in between to sort of speed the process up. But if you're batch painting, which I will be for the other 9 of these, you can sort of get a layer on, move to the next guy, get the layer on, move to the next rat, and so on, and it makes it a little bit easier for that way. And you just keep going, and there you see it's almost finished. Like I said, it does take a while, this layer, because the coverage over the black is not amazing, but there we go. This is it right at the end. Like I said, this was about 4 layers in total. It was pretty quite a long time, to be fair. So once you've done that, we're going to be base coating the metallics, and we're just going to be using Iron Hand Steel. I like this colour. It's a pretty solid silver colour. It's quite dark, and it looks really good as chainmail. Now, literally, once you've done this, once it's dry, you can literally give this a wash of Noon oil or whichever black wash you like to use. You may like to be thin your contrast paints down, like Rattling Grime or something like that. And then that's the metallic areas done. We won't be going back at them for the rest of the video, to be honest. But just work your way around the video, picking out all of the chainmail, any of the silver and metallic parts that you want, and then just do that. And you can sort of see me doing the blade and everything else. I do, for some unknown reason, leave that knife unpainted for quite some time, and then I come back and just paint it silver. I think I was potentially going to do the rusty look on it like I've done on my rat ogres, but I kind of chose against it. So once that's done, we're going to be doing the flesh, and we're going to be doing a classic flesh for the army, and that's Rakar flesh. This is how I'm going to be doing my flesh on all of my rats. It's super quick, it's super easy, and we're going to be jumping into how I do that later on in the video. So base coat everything that is going to be flesh, Rakar flesh, and then again, you might need 2 coats, but Rakar flesh does cover over a black really well, so yeah, that's always quite handy. So just work your way around the model, and if you make any mistakes at this point, it's okay, just go back over the colour that you've made a mistake on, and you can crack on. And there you go, this is it all base coated. So we're now going to start working on building up the shadows. So working on the red armor, we're going to be working with Corn Red and Incubi Darkness. Now this is a glaze, sort of a wash heavy glaze of Corn Red, and I'm basically pulling that into the deepest recesses of the armor. And now once I've worked around the model and I'm happy with how that's looking and built up those colours, I then start adding a little bit of Incubi Darkness into the mix and slowly start building up those darker contrasting shadows from the light and the dark. And we're going to be doing something very similar to the highlights, but later on in the video as well. So just work your way around, get all of that in, and just take your time and have a little bit of fun with this. I find that this is one of my most enjoyable parts of the model, because you can just have a lot of fun with it. And if you do make mistakes, just use your base coat, thin it down a little bit, and then you can just like brush over it and just get rid of the mistake. But I just want to take this time right now just to thank everybody for the support that I'm getting right now. It's been absolutely amazing. The channel is really going from strength to strength. I'm really happy that you are enjoying the painting tutorials, and there are a lot more coming. And if there's any more that you want to see, let me know in the comments below, and I'll get them worked on and get them up on the channel for you. This year is definitely going to be all about the painting tutorials. So as you can see, I'm pretty much like almost like a 50-50 mix of Ink by Darkness and Corn Red right now, and it's basically, this is like in the deepest recesses and the sort of real sort of deepest parts of the armor panels to get them looking really, really good. And again, if it's looking a little bit untidy, you can use that Memphiston Red, go back in with a couple of glazes over the top just to smooth out that transition. Again, this is quite optional, and this is an optional stage. You don't need to do this if you don't want to. You don't have to go as deep as this. Like, I quite like painting quite like the studio. I'm nowhere near as good as what those guys are, but you know, I like to think that I can get something similar and to my standard, which is always good. Next, we're going to be using Evil Sun Scarlet. So this is going to be a mixture of a glaze, which you see me doing right now, over the highest points of the armor panels, and then a chunky edge highlight, which we'll be also doing very shortly. And you can get this thin down. I think it's basically like 1 part paint, 2 parts water at this point. Get it nice and thin, so there's not that much on my brush, and I just put it on, and I'm basically wanting this into the highest points of the armor panels. This is to sort of just give it a little bit brightness. This is an entirely optional step, so you don't really need to do it. What I'm doing right now is I'm going in now with this chunky edge highlight, and this is your first highlight. You want this to be quite fat, not stupidly huge fat, but like your normal edge highlight, but just a little bit thicker, because your next edge highlight that you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting that inside the center of this edge highlight. So just take your time. If you're having an issue seeing the edges and stuff like that, you know, I wear a pair of magnifying glasses, which I find really helpful. So you can pick them up from Amazon for like 10-15 quid, and they're really, really handy to use. And the brush I'm using is a Rosemary CO Series 323, which is a really, really good point on it. And this is like my go-to brush when it comes to sort of edge highlighting now. Really quite happy with this one. There's a link in the description below if you want to grab yourself some. So just go around getting all of those highlights on. And if you make it a little bit too big and a little bit too chunky, you can just get the Memphiston Red and come back in and cut into it and just tidy that up a little bit, and you know, or a little bit of battle damage, however you want it. You know, it's completely up to you. I would say just take your time and just go around, make sure you thin the paint a little bit, and just go around the whole model and just, you know, pick out all of the edges, and that'll really sort of define all of those parts as well, and really make the armor pop, which is really, really, really good. So next up, we're going to be doing the next edge highlight, which is Troll Slayer Orange. And like I said, this one needs to be inside the previous edge highlight. So really take your time at this. I really enjoy edge highlighting. I know a lot of people don't like this sort of style, and if you're really kind of new to it, just practice. Space Marines are really good to practice on, to be completely honest. But if you do want to get these edge highlights on, you can dry brush it with a real light dry brush over the edges, and that'll pick all of that out. But you may have to come and tidy up the other parts of the model, so just be aware of that one. So on the back, I think this is probably one of the best places to sort of see it, because the Stormvermin armor down the back of the model is really, really, really cool. So, you know, you just take your time, a little bit of thin paint. Troll Slayer Orange is not the best paint in the world. Its coverage is a bit naff, so you might need to go over it a couple of times, but just take your time, keep it nice and, you know, nice and slow. Keep your hands steady and just work around that model, picking out those edge highlights. Prioritize the sharpest points and you know you'll get something really cool. And if you want to add some chipping, now's kind of the good time to sort of do that. You can do the little chips and scratches with this color, which would be really, really cool. Then finally, what we're going to be doing with is Tau Light Ochre, and we're literally just doing a very thin, very small edge highlight on the highest, sharpest points of the armor. And this is what makes the red armor really pop. If you don't have this, you could get there is an orangey color called Lunguin Orange. Or even Cadian Flesh Tone will also work as well. I used to use Dwarf Flesh quite a lot for an old Blood Angels army. But yeah, you just want the real sharpest points. You're not doing the whole panel, but just stick to the sharpest edges, corners, things like that. The little sort of cracks and dents and chips in the armor, and pick those points out. So next we're going to start working on the cloth, and we're going to do all of our shading with Steel Legion Drab. Again, thin this down to sort of like a wash glaze consistency, and you want to be focusing this in the deepest recesses of the cloth. If you make any mistakes at any point, just get the Karnak stone and just go over and tidy that up. Once we've done all of the shading with both colours, I do go back and tidy up with the Karnak stone before moving into the highlights. And then what you'll do is you'll just be able to sort of get that nice and defined with those shadows. And there it is, sort of all done there. Took me about 10-15 minutes just working backwards and forwards, and it's all good. Then we use Thondir Brown, and we get that thinned down, and we want this in the deepest recesses. I also used some unthinned Thondir Brown, and I painted like the spear shaft and the sort of leather pouch as well, because I wanted a little bit of more of a richer leather rather than using my normal Rhinox hide mix. But we'll be going over the leather shortly in the video. So just use the Thondir Brown in all the deepest recesses, and again, if you make a mistake, you can go back with the previous colours and just tidy that up. So here I am just tidying everything up with the Karnak stone. This is quite thinned, and it's kind of just picking everything out, just tidying all the raised areas up, and any of the sort of the sort of previous shadow colours going over the raised areas. I've just sort of picked them back out and sort of get those areas defined. So next up, we're going to be starting edge highlighting the cloth, and that's using Flayed One Flesh. Now you go around all of the edges, picking out any of the little sort of holes, and just take your time going around that. Now if you want to get it a little bit brighter, for more of an extreme highlight, just add a little bit white to that, and then you can put that on the edges, and that'll really make those areas pop. But again, just take your time going around all of the edges and picking out all of the sharpest points and the raised points as well. You kind of see it on here on the shoulder pad cloth area here, where, you know, sort of picking out the highest points of the folds and the edges, just really making that cloth stand out a little bit. Now for the skin, we're going to be shading the skin areas with thinned down Night Questor flesh. And again, just thin this right down with some water or some medium, and then go around all of the skin areas and just give it a nice liberal wash. So you really want this sort of sitting in the recessed areas of the hands and the feet and the face. There isn't much in the way of skin showing on the Stormvermin models, to be completely honest. Even like this is like the champion model, but even the others are sort of more heavily armored anyway. And then once you've done that, get some thinned Doomball brown, and you want this into the deepest recesses. And I found the deepest points seem to be between the toes on the feet, and then on the back of the hands between the knuckles and the fingers. There is a little bit of recesses underneath the eyes and around the face, but the Stormvermin are wearing helmets, and the vast majority of the face is covered by that, so you can kind of get away with it. And but if you do need it, just put that in. And then allow that to dry, and then if you need to come back and tidy up, just get the Reichland flesh, the Rakar flesh, come back and then just tidy up all of the raised areas. So next we're going to be start highlighting up the skin using pallid witch flesh and white. So first we're just going to be using pallid witch flesh just to pick out the highest points. So the tops of the toes, the tops of the feet, the backs of the hands, the tops of the fingers, the knuckles, things like that, and any raised areas on the face. Once you're happy with where you are, you can add a little bit of white in that just to get a little bit more of a brighter highlight, and then just go in and pick those areas out. You may have noticed that certain parts of the model are also painted now, the likes of the spear and the plume and the tail and things. For the tail, I literally just painted it Bugman's Glow, and then washed it with Reichland Flesh Shade, and then got some thinned Bugman's Glow and picked out the raised areas, and that was how I do all of the tails. And for the spear, it's basically just metallics. And then just washed. I'm not going into massive detail on the weaponry on the models because, you know, I'm going to have a lot of these guys to paint, and I want the main parts being the cloth and the armor being the more focal points of the model rather than the weapon. For the glowy rune stone, you'll see that later on in another video. So for the leather, I'm just going to pick out all of the raised areas with Mournfang Brown, and then once that's done, I'll be sort of highlighting up a little bit more. You can wash the brown areas with Noon oil before getting into these highlights if you need to. And then once you've done that, pick out all of those areas again with XV88. And this, again, it needs to be a very thinner highlight compared to the other ones. So you're trying to sort of keep this inside the Mournfang Brown and sort of keep it more to the raised prominent areas. And then finally, Karnak Stone, just to pick out the more prominent raised areas of the leather. And this is a little bit more of a richer leather. You can then get Thondir Brown and glaze that down and put it over the leather just to sort of bring that all back in and tie it all in. But again, this is a gaming piece, so it's completely up to you. So just work around all of the leather parts, any of the straps and things like that, and then just pick that out. And then pretty much that's it. Just finish off all the details and the base, and your Stormvermin are good to go. You know, you're going to have about a unit of 10 of these to do, so just take your time. The Warpstone will be in another video that I've got planned using a global deer, and we're going to be seeing that very, very soon. But thank you very much for watching the video. If you are enjoying what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share on all of that good stuff. And I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye for now.